I have decided to make my bedroom smaller, and today I'm going to share with you why I see this as an opportunity and how I'm going to design the smaller space to ensure that it becomes this relaxing bedroom for me and my husband. Even before we bought this fixer-upper apartment, I started to play with the floor plan. I always do this to make sure that I can see that there is a potential to really elevate the floor plan and turn this apartment into a higher standard of living. And when I play around, I keep both my own and my husband's desires in terms of how we like to live, but I also keep in mind how someone else might like to live in a space, as we never really stay in a place for a long time. And if you're new here, the reason for this is because I'm currently on a quest to renovate 11 homes to see if I can build a sustainable real estate business. And when I began looking at the floor plan of the current 2-bedroom that was designed in this apartment, I immediately saw that they were about the same size, 2 quite narrow spaces, both had a window, and between the 2 spaces there was this built-in wardrobe wall, I would call it, that was actually pretty run down. So I started to play with the idea of demolishing the whole closet wall and building a thinner wall between the 2 rooms. This would allow me to move the storage to the end of the room and hence make these 2 rooms feel slightly less narrow than what they were currently feeling. And this soon made me have to consider, okay, am I making one room bigger, one room smaller, or am I keeping the 2 rooms the same size? And to make this decision, I had 3 different things that I wanted to consider. The first thing was that I knew that I was going to turn one of these 2 rooms into a home office for me and my husband. The other thing I knew was that we wanted a bedroom that had the highest priority of being a space that really helped us to rest and become relaxed. Lastly, I also knew that the next owner of this apartment was likely to be a family with kids. So a need for some kind of bedroom for children or enough space to at least have a crib was probably a priority for the next owner. So with all of these 3 things in mind, I decided to place the wall closer to one of the rooms so that that room became slightly more narrow and smaller, and so that the other room becomes slightly larger. But what does this decision actually mean? Well, in the eyes of the next owner, I think what they would see is that the apartment now has a larger primary bedroom, and if they have a baby, you could easily fit both a large bed and a crib, for example, in that space. You would also be able to see as a next potential buyer that you also have a smaller bedroom that would be perfect, for example, as a kid's bedroom. Or if you also need a home office for some reason, you could have a smaller home office as well. For us, on the other hand, it meant that we would be able to have a large home office, as we spend a lot of time in this home office and we both need a good place to work. But it also meant that our bedroom would be maximized in design in terms of what we wanted out of the bedroom. A calm space that we could feel restful in. For most people, a smaller room that is designed well can actually help us to feel more comforted and private than a larger room. This is, for example, one of the reasons why some people put drapes around their bed so that it becomes slightly more closed in, a bit more cozy and private. And in a similar way, having a smaller room that the bed sits in can have a similar effect. And for us, this is really what we were looking for. But if you were to consider some of these things for yourself, I think it's really key that you start with asking yourself, what do you use your bedroom for? What is the feeling that you want in there? Joachim and I almost spend no time in the bedroom except from when we sleep or if I meditate. And because of this, the main purpose of this space will be sleeping, meditating, a place to rest and relax. But if you need other functions in your bedroom, you might want to have a larger bedroom. You might want to have a more narrow bedroom to be able to create 2 sections. Always start with what you want and what you desire to feel in your space in order to determine and guide your design. And actually, I've talked a lot about this home office and it's complete. It's the space I'm sitting in right now. And if you missed the series where I completely renovated this space, I'll link it up here, and I really recommend you go and see all the struggles that we had in order to turn this into our dream office. But let's move on. we have created the architecture of the space, essentially the shape and the size of it. And the next step in my design process was to determine how am I going to design the storage solution. As I mentioned before, I wanted to put it on the back wall of the room because in this way the room becomes slightly less narrow, and we also are able to maximize the floor space closest to the natural light source, which is something that I always try to do. And the other thing I wanted to consider when designing the storage was that the storage now becomes very close to the entry of the bedroom, which gives an opportunity to really consider how that threshold moment is going to be. In architecture, we always pay a lot of attention to how you move between spaces. In other words, the threshold. Because I wanted this space to be slightly more private, calming, restful space, I decided to design the closet so that it wraps around the door and creates this very narrow kind of tunnel feel when you're entering the space. And the reason for this is that from the rest of the apartment, you now have a slightly more visual separation. It's harder to see the full bedroom when you're on the outside. The other reason is that as you enter, you now have this emphasized feel of I'm entering a cave, I'm entering something special, a smaller space, a space to retreat in. And it can also actually help to make the bedroom feel bigger when you're moving through that very tiny tunnel and then coming up in something bigger. So due to this, the design for the storage is this full wall closet unit, and we're going to wrap it in a plywood. Again, this is to bring in some natural materials and neutral warm colors that can really help to create this calming space inside. And moving on to the colors of the rest of the room. What do we need to think about in this case? Well, if we look at color psychology, which is something I always consider when picking colors, is that deep blue and deep green colors have the ability to make us feel grounded and calm. And these colors are therefore both popular and very, very suitable for a bedroom. So I decided to put these quite dark blue on all the walls and then painting the ceiling in a slightly more light blue color. And the reason for not creating a dark ceiling is because I didn't want the room to feel too small. And by still keeping the ceiling color blue, but a lighter color helps to open up the space and make it slightly larger so that not all the details in the room is trying to make it feel small. To tie the whole room together, I also want to paint the baseboard in the same lighter blue as the ceiling. And the last thing I want to talk about today is the rest of the decor, because now we've talked about the size, the layout, the colors, the storage solution. And the last thing that I really want to add into this space is some touches of green and a lot of fabric and natural materials. Fabric helps the acoustics of the space to feel calm, and actually having a smaller space in itself helps to decrease the noise level in a room. So I'm going to add in a lot of green textiles to bring in that natural calming grounding color. And beyond that, I'm also going to add in additional wooden materials in the bedside tables. These bedside tables we have since before. And then later on, I'm also going to add in art pieces, but here I haven't decided yet which ones I want to use from the pieces I already have. So this will be something we can explore in a later video together. So as a whole, this is what I imagine for our relaxing and calming bedroom. And in this design, I have used everything from considering the size of the space to how you enter the space, to the colors and what color psychology is helping us know about the feel of the room, bringing in natural materials that help us feel connected to nature, which often also make us feel calm, and all in all, just bringing in fabric and ensuring that acoustics become as quiet as possible. And if you did learn something new or found this inspiring, please do give this video a thumbs up. And in the coming videos, I am now going to share with you how we are going about transforming this currently not so nice room into what I have just shared with you. So if you're curious about seeing how that goes, do consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you in the next one.